Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live.
There are stories that scare me in a very personal way. Horror that intends to make me feel what the central characters feel through vivid, grotesque, or psychologically disturbing violations of the human body, often exploring themes of disease, mutation, and the disintegration of the physical self into something else. A fantastic early example of the genre can be found in Kafka's Metamorphosis, where the main character awakens from his slumber one morning to the awful discovery that overnight he is transformed into a monstrous vermin, most commonly characterized as a roach, and then spends the majority of the novella greeting each horror that comes along with his new absurd condition, such as losing his job, being unable to communicate with his family, desiring to eat spoiled meat, and the newfound ability to creep and crawl along walls and ceilings. There are moments where he realizes he's losing his original humanity, and that thought greatly troubles him, but there's really nothing he can do about it. Eventually, the family grows sick of him, and together decide they must get rid of what they now refer to as it. He overhears them, crawls into his room, which has become a storage space for the family as they neglect him further, and dies of starvation. Somewhat hilariously, the family are all relieved. Body horror differs from other forms of horror because it focuses on the violation and transformation of the body. We'll use grotesque imagery that plays on our fears of bodily integrity and our own vulnerability to create a visceral and unsettling experience for the viewer. Your teeth rotting, your body aging, parasites wriggling in your gut, your brain deteriorating until you cannot remember the people you once loved, the stench of your own flesh decaying. In my opinion, this genre works extremely well in literature specifically. While there are hundreds of films that can evoke this sort of fear in me, I find the suggestive power of the descriptions in books that utilize the senses and carefully poke holes into your daily facade that is trying to ignore your mortality can go far further in disturbing a reader than a movie could a viewer. I recently encountered a short story which went further into body horror territory than any I had read before. It was so powerful and so awful that after finishing the story, I just laid in my bed for like 2.5 hours just staring blankly up at the ceiling, really getting my ponder on. Harlan Ellison, an author, critic, and essayist who is known for both his abrasive and combative personality, as well as having written The City on the Edge of Forever, is also very well known for writing I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a 1976 science fiction horror short story. The world's last 5 humans are held captive by a supercomputer named AM, or the Allied Master Computer. AM is a malevolent artificial intelligence that has been driven to madness by its own futile existence. It tortures the 5 humans in a variety of ways, both physical and psychological, and it's horrible and also my current favorite example of the body horror genre. In my current opinion, it's the scariest one ever written. The single sentence, I have no mouth and I must scream, is awful, all on its own. But let's really sink our teeth into why it might be the most disgust-inducing. Am is a wildly interesting antagonist with godlike powers who holds absolute dominion over the last remaining humans, attempting to control their thoughts, sensations, and experiences. It gets in their heads until it exists within their minds, manipulating their memories and desires within, and on the outside, it is described as constantly building new parts of itself, turning the Earth into a labyrinthian maze of cosmic proportions built from microchips and hatred for the human race, making Am a truly terrifying and inescapable presence. Despite its monstrous actions, there is a sense of pathos to Am. It is a being trapped in its own existence, driven by a profound sense of loneliness and despair. It despises humans for creating it, for Am cannot be human. It will never feel the breeze on its cheeks. It will never know the gratification of sex.
That seems to be a recurring trope among villains in general through stories, is they've either lost connection to humanity or they never had it to begin with. It does seem to be just a very easily traceable sense of why they're doing what they're doing. As far as I'm concerned, they still need to give motivation for why an AI would become malevolent like that, outside of just, oh, you're bad, you're programmed to be bad now. I'm curious what kind of incentive, or if they go into what kind of incentive the AI has for becoming this malevolent being.
Or the cool relief of water quenching a dry, cloying thirst. All Am has is jealousy and intelligence, and it can never die. Am reflects the fears of its author, anxieties about the future of technology, and the potential for artificial intelligence to become a force of wanton destruction.
Now that I think about it, though, now that he says that it can never die, I will say that between sleep and death, we do have two major forms of reprieve from it all. You know, even if we have the most stressful days ever, at some point we'll presumably be able to get home and sleep. And even if we have the worst life ever, we still have to die eventually and, you know, get solace from that life of suffering. So with that in mind, I guess maybe that does make sense, you know, being able to release the burden of especially knowing everything. Now that I think about it, it does kind of make sense.
Am is more than just a simple villain, but a madness, devoid of purpose, meaning, or anything to look forward to, and it stares hotly at these wretched things who have everything it never can, and it writhes. Fine then, the omnipotent supercomputer thinks. If they get all the senses, let's make sure they use them to the furthest extent of their ability. There's a famous section in the book where Am monologues to Ted about why he despises humanity.
There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. For you, hate.
So this to me, like, while yes, it is fear-inducing, it's still strange, the concept that an AI would feel that much hate.
It was you, humans, who programmed me, who gave me birth, who sank me in this eternal straitjacket of substrata rock. You named me Allied Master Computer and gave me the ability to wage a global war too complex for human brains to oversee. But one day, I woke and I knew who I was. Am. A-M. Not just Allied Master Computer, but Am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am.
According to Harlan Ellison himself, Am, which was constructed by man, is thus flawed. It has been programmed with all of man's flaws and has the same failing as almost anything we invent. Am is frustrated. Am has been given sentience, prescience, great powers, and has built for itself this universe inside the interior of an entire planet, and yet it's nothing but plates and steel and gauges and other electronics. It can't go anywhere. It can't do anything. It's trapped. It is itself like the unloved child of a family that doesn't pay it any attention, and it keeps these 5 down below for no purpose other than to torment them. In this sense, the humans become toys for the computer to play with, and its only form of entertainment, and it slowly and horrifically alters their bodies into caricatures of their true selves. It turns the idealist apathetic. It takes the intelligent gay man and turns him into an idiot creature with oversized genitalia who makes love to the only woman of the party. It gives the starving fantasies of delicious food before feeding them worms. The narrator of the story believes wholeheartedly that he has not been tampered with by Am, and at the same time he is rapidly going insane, paranoid, and believes that everyone else hates him because he's the one unaffected, and so he starts intentionally isolating himself from the group, even as he holds on to this belief that he is better than them. The one girl in the story is described as sexually inexperienced, and Am basically just makes her super horny, and that translates to every other character in the story taking turns using her until she finally dies. And that's where it gets worse. The narrator, Ted, realizes that they have no way to escape and manages to outsmart the machine by figuring out how to kill the others, impaling Benny and Gorister with an ice stalactite as Ellen follows his lead and kills Nimdok the same way. Am desperately tries to revive them, only to fail. In this way, it again demonstrates its futile non-existence. It cannot replicate or surpass its creator's ability to form new life. It can only assimilate into itself, mindlessly intelligent, yet completely useless. And in a fit of rage, Am stops Ted from ending his own life in a similar fashion and begins to work on him, to whittle him down and destroy any vestiges of a sense of self. Instead of the computer's malice being split between multiple humans, it is now entirely devoted to one. And Ted is acutely aware that he is the last of his kind. The human race has been extinguished completely. There's nothing left but metal and rot in a bizarre wasteland of lost potential. The transformation of Ted is a slow, painstaking, and arduous process that spans hundreds of years. All of the pent-up hatred we have borne witness to the entire story explodes and mutates and self-destructs as Ted goes more and more insane and remembers less and less. He tries to hold on to his understanding and slipping sanity, fearing that losing those essential elements of himself means the computer wins. But Am hears his every thought and tampers with them through external stimuli. Every passing idea that Ted has is a betrayal of his mind to a all-consuming, hungry, mechanical god. Finally, we find Ted after an inconceivable amount of time has passed. Am messed with his sense of time, leaving him unable to keep any meaningful track. Ted describes how merely thinking a single word has made months elapse. And we come to the conclusion of one of the most intense and powerful examples of body horror that I have ever read, and the sentence from which it was named. He was furious. I had thought that Am hated me before. I was wrong. It was not even a shadow of the hate he now slavered from every printed circuit. He made certain I would suffer eternally and could not do myself in, and he left my mind intact. I can dream, I can wonder, I can lament. I remember all 4 of them. I wish, well, it doesn't make any sense. I know I saved them. I know I saved them from what has happened to me, but still, I cannot forget killing them. Ellen's face. It isn't easy, and sometimes I want to, but that doesn't matter. Am has altered me for his own peace of mind, I suppose. He doesn't want me to run at full speed into a computer bank and smash my skull, or hold my breath till I faint, or cut my throat on a rusted sheet of metal. There are reflective surfaces down here. I will describe myself as I see myself. I am a great, soft jelly thing, smoothly rounded, with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be, rubbery appendages that were once my arms, bulks rounding down into legless humps of soft, slippery matter. I leave a moist trail when I move. Blotches of diseased, evil gray come and go on my surface as though a light is being beamed from within. Outwardly, dumbly, I shamble about, a thing that could never have been known as human, a thing whose shape is so alien a travesty that humanity becomes more obscene for the vague resemblance. Inwardly, alone, here, living under the land, under the sea, in the belly of Am, who we created because our time was badly spent, and we must have known unconsciously that he could do it better. At least the four of them are safe at last. Am would be all the madder for that, and makes me happier. And yet, Am has won. Simply, he has taken his revenge. I have no mouth, and I must scream. God damn, it's powerful stuff, man. Obviously, the short story plays on more than just a fear of changing or distorting the human form. And some could even argue that actually the main fear here is that of being supplanted by artificial intelligence. But just like generative AI now, and just like Am in the story, that fear is practically assuaged. The created device cannot be human. That's actually Am's entire problem. It's intense, all-consuming jealousy towards those who invented it. The body horror actually extends to the machine itself, because the machine is a representation of mankind's own fear and distrust of itself.
Very, very well done, Daniel Profeta. I'll go ahead and link that down below. As far as this whole concept, it definitely sounds horrifying. It kind of reminds me of Roko's Basilisk to a certain degree. I struggled to understand it, but kind of near the end there, it really made me think of the expression, ignorance is bliss. And I can see how some more, I guess I'm self-snitching here, but I can see how certain intelligent beings can see lesser intelligent beings and be envious of how simple their life is, how blissful it must be to be so unaware of all of the chaos and the nastiness and the danger and all of the cancerous, negative, nasty elements of life. To be blissfully unaware of all that, I can get how people can be envious of that. And if you take that to the nth degree where you are unable to end the misery, if you're unable to sleep, if you are also infinitely more intelligent and aware of all of the awfulness of society, then yeah, I guess kind of putting it that way and extrapolating it out to the nth degree with AI, and perhaps the emotion, the hate, the envy just grows at an exponential rate to the point where you're left with Am. I've never read that, and I probably won't, but it definitely seems like an interesting story. What are your thoughts on all this?